So just to catch everyone up, for those who weren't here before, sorry, spotlight us. We have been talking about so far the teaching of the 8 awarenesses. Um, Very similar to and almost kind of mirroring the Eightfold Path. And like we said, the Eightfold Path was one of the Buddha's first teachings, and the 8 awarenesses were his last on his deathbed. These were his final teachings. Like, yo, if you folks want to see the way, here are 8 things to be aware of. And then, of course, Dogen Zenji, 1700 years later, used them, paraphrased them, referenced them in his final teachings in 1253 AD. So, day one, we talked about freedom from greed, and we talked about satisfaction, right? And of course, these are not rules to follow, these are not goals to attain. These are simply things to continue being aware of on our path. So, freedom from greed, satisfaction, and then yesterday we talked about the serenity of solitude and how solitude in this sense doesn't mean necessarily little me being alone, but the solitude of the me that includes everything, big solitude, great solitude. And then the fourth awareness was diligence, having diligence in our practice, whatever our practice looks like. So today we'll talk about the fifth and sixth awarenesses or means to enlightenment. Seriously, enlightenment, y'all. Enlightenment. Sometimes I feel like we get so caught up in, I don't know, Zen stuff and trying to heal ourselves and trying to do good. And it's easy to forget that we're like practicing enlightenment, awakening to the true nature of the universe. No small feat. It's pretty cool. Okay, the fifth means to enlightenment is preserved awareness of the Dharma. This means to have correct recollection of the Dharma. So that's Dogen's little intro. Correct recollection of the Dharma. Preserved awareness of the Dharma. So I guess in order to really talk about this, we have to figure out what the Dharma is. Because it's not so simple. Kind of deep in the curriculum that we study here, we study the 3 treasures of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And when you study them thoroughly, the way our great Dharma uncle Yasutani Roshi has laid it out for us, there's 3 different ways to see the treasures. The unified 3 treasures, the manifested 3 treasures, and the abiding 3 treasures. Don't worry about thinking about or remembering that. But it's just to say that this Dharma treasure can mean different things. In the manifested 3 treasures, the Dharma refers to the teachings of the Buddha, right? Hence, Dharma talk, right? So I'm talking about the teachings of the Buddha. And so from that perspective, what is it? Maintaining correct awareness what is it? Awareness of the Dharma. Preserved awareness of the Dharma. So yeah, that's coming to Dharma talks. That's all of these eight awarenesses tie into each other so well because it's diligence, right? Be diligent about having the Dharma, the teachings in your life. Um, I was just telling someone recently, I forget in what context, but I remember going to maybe I talked about it yesterday with you all, but a Dharma talk at San Francisco Zen Center many, 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 many years ago. This was probably like 2003. And someone was giving a talk and someone asked the question, is it possible for lay, city-dwelling, house-holding, family-having people to attain enlightenment? And staying away from attainment for now, the teacher simply said, yes, of course, but it's just harder and you need more reminders. And at the time, I thought that was like a little transactional. It felt weird, but I think it makes perfect sense now. Um, if you're in the forest with Buddha and you're all in robes and you're all meditating all day, or living in the monastery with Dogen, then yeah, to preserve awareness of the Dharma is probably super simple. It's just you eat, breathe, work, sit all day, just like Sesshin. We're like diving into this awareness of the Dharma. But for those of us who don't live in the forest with the world honored one, um, how do we preserve that? Maybe it's even as, dare I say, have a statue or keep your rakusu somewhere visible or, I don't know, little reminders throughout the day to keep that awareness of the Buddha's teaching. Um, so yeah, that's the Dharma from that perspective, the manifested three treasures. But then if we look at the unified three treasures, we talk about the Dharma as all of the phenomena of our world. So this amazing, beautiful microphone that has changed our lives is the Dharma. And my slightly upset tummy is the Dharma. And the hundreds of bees that are buzzing around our Indian hawthorn, the Dharma. Our jealousy and desire is the Dharma. Um, some of our chants say the 10,000 dharmas, 10,000 just being kind of an arbitrary number, but really the numberless dharmas. And so on face value, I guess that's kind of different, the two kinds of dharmas, but it's very important to see how those are not different. That the bees outside and the health issues and the microphone are the Buddha's teaching. The teaching of awakeness, the reminders of enlightenment are everywhere, all the time, just screaming at us. And we don't hear it. Very often, we don't hear it. It's like that koan I talked yesterday, where the guy says, Master, and he answers himself, yes, Master, yes. Talking about that all-inclusive solitude. Let everything be your master. Even your traumas and wounds and hang-ups. That is the Buddha's teaching. Trying to just hold you gently and tell you that this too is it. Just this. Perfect enlightenment. Just this. So, preserved awareness of the Dharma, preserved awareness of everything as the teaching. So Dogen quotes the Buddha. The Buddha says, monks, those who seek a good master, a guide to the truth, should preserve right awareness of the Dharma. For this gains freedom from delusion. That would be nice. Freedom from delusion. Freedom from delusion. It makes me think of one of the koans in the first 200 miscellaneous koans we say. The koan is delusion is enlightenment, enlightenment is delusion. And I think that's so important to really, I mean, we can talk about it and get it conceptually, but to really live, no separation. It's like on day one, we talked about the difference between, um, you know, samsara and suffering versus enlightenment and nirvana, as if they're like two separate things. Like, oh, when I self and I detach and separate, then I'm here in samsara and I'm suffering. But if I do really good and if I practice really hard, then one day I'll go to this place where I'm one with everything and everything's great and there's no self and beauty and blah blah blah. And there are some lineages and teachings that talk about it like that, and I think that's useful in some way. Crossing the river is a major uh, kind of symbol or metaphor in a lot of Buddhist teachings, going from one side to the other. And that can be inspiring, and we can definitely experience transformation 100%. But I think to really do that, we have to see the duality of delusion and enlightenment and smash that shit. Get rid of that duality. Delusion is enlightenment. Enlightenment is delusion. So when I'm all deluded and my mind's busy during session and I'm judging myself and I'm judging others, how is that perfectly enlightened? What would that feel like? To just allow, to just be aware of that as the Dharma. That is freedom from delusion. I don't think it means, oh, I never have a delusion again. I never have an impure thought again. I just don't think so. So then the Buddha says, heed these words. If you fail to do so, you will forfeit its various associated merits. Um, yeah, there's a lot of like merit talk in this stuff. And I'm not very familiar with the concept of merit in Buddhism. It just kind of hasn't really been a part of my training. Gaining merit. It sounds very Catholic. Very transactional. So when I hear that, what that means to me is being of service, living a life of service, living a life that's not about me and my wants. So yeah, if you fail to do this, if you fail to keep a right awareness of the Dharma, you will forfeit its various associated services. You will forfeit the ability to, as we say, see myself as other and other as myself, to feel someone else's pain as my pain, to see someone else's joy and love and accomplishment as my joy, love, and accomplishment. And that sucks to not see that. And then he says, on the other hand, if you do preserve awareness of the Dharma, you will gain protection from the five desires, and you will be just like a soldier dressed in impenetrable armor. This is preserved awareness of the Dharma. So I like this idea of protection from the five desires. I imagine the Buddha sitting on his seat under the Bodhi tree, and then Mara, the evil demon, sends down all these temptations to try to move Buddha from his seat so he can gain enlightenment. He's trying to distract the Buddha. He's trying to lure him with like fine smelling food and beautiful women and music and whatever else lures us. And so yeah, he says we can have freedom from those five desires. What does that look like? I think you can probably already tell that I'm going to say it has nothing to do with not desiring things. I think there's a great koan, one of my favorites. I know I always say that. One of these days I'll pick a koan and say, I hate this koan. I'm going to talk about it anyway. I'm going to have to spin this a little bit. Attention. Kyozan asked Chuyu, what is the meaning of Buddha nature? Chuyu replied, for your sake, I'll tell you a simile. There is a room with 6 windows, and in the middle there is a monkey. A person outside calls, monkey, monkey, and the monkey responds. In like manner, when all of the 6 windows are called, they all respond. The monk asked, what about when the monkey sleeps? Chuyu got down from his meditation cushion and grabbed him, saying, monkey, monkey, you and I have just met. Clear? Obvious? So what is the meaning of Buddha nature? What does it mean to really know our true self? To have freedom from greed and satisfaction and serenity and diligence and what's this one? I've already forgotten. And remembering the Dharma, really intimate with the Dharma. And the teacher says you have this room, there's a monkey in it, and 6 windows. And we're talking about the 5 desires here. So let's just say 5 windows. And these 6 windows typically are talked about as the 6 like perceptions, like the 6 senses, I guess. But I'm kind of twisting a little bit. I think it works the same. So let's say we have 5 windows, and those are the 5 desires that the Buddha is talking about. And someone calls outside, monkey, monkey. And of course, this monkey is our little self. It's the thing that believes wholeheartedly that there's a Chowa here in a world, in a galaxy, in a universe. Thinks that's real. That's the monkey. And then the 5 windows, let's say, are the 5 desires. I'm sure that's like an old Buddhist thing, the 5 desires. Maybe some of you know it. I don't know. Hunger, sex, fame, whatever they are. And then this person outside, and he's calling you. Hey, little self. Hey, 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 little self. Here's this award. Hey, little self. Hey, here's this beautiful thing. Hey, here's this food. Hey, here's this opportunity. And so at first, the monkey, he says the monkey responds, right? This little self responds to that. But he also says the windows themselves respond. Our yearning, our aversion, our getting hooked. They themselves, he said, alike respond, just like the monkey. Right? And so hopefully we're starting to see that there's no separation. My desires, my perceptions, all the skandhas, all my karma are one. They are, I am nothing but them. I am nothing but my karma. And so then the monk asks, what about when the monkey is asleep? And I guess you could see this in different ways, but for now, let's just say he's saying, well, what about when I quiet my small self? What about when I have preserved awareness of the Dharma and I sit lots of sesshin and I have really good, whatever, meditation, and my little self goes to sleep? What then? What happens when I'm called by my desires and my perceptions and my karma? And Shuyu runs down and he shakes him and he says, monkey, monkey, we've just met. So he doesn't say, oh, well, when the monkey's asleep, then you have no desires. Then you have no perceptions and everything's just totally blissed out emptiness. No, he's saying the monkey is here. Everything just now is it. Your 5 desires are it. Know them. Let them grab you and shake you. That's, when the monkey is asleep, when our small self is quieted, then we get even deeper in touch with our desires. We really know them. We're so intimate with them that there's no monkey to respond. It's just simply allowing the windows to be. I don't know, super hard to talk about. I hope that makes some sense. So, freedom from the 5 desires, what does that mean? It means totally desiring, becoming desire, and not being separate from it. And through that practice, I think you'll see your desires shifting. The relationship you have with your desires will shift. But do not leave here or at any time think that you should be shutting off desires. Once I'm awakened, then I'll just not have desires and I'll just be preserving the Dharma, in some kind of, I don't know, different way. I don't think that's a thing. But they do shift. They do shift. And it makes me think of Seisin. I'll share this story. I think she's okay with me sharing this. She's pretty open. But whenever we talk about sexuality, Seisin talks about sitting with her sexuality for years, really just being it, not slave to it, not, just acting on it, not being, like an addiction behavior, but just being it, just feeling that desire in Zazen, just breathing sexual desire. And she said through that practice of being intimate with it, she says she totally took care of it to the point where now she just kind of isn't really moved by it at all. And I'm sure that doesn't mean that she doesn't get drawn to something or a moment but the idea that we can take care of these desires, penetrate them and really transform them so they're not taking us over, I think is real. But it does take a lot of work and a lot of preserved awareness of the Dharma and seeing it as the Dharma, right? That's what she was doing, sitting with sexual desire all those years and pain. Oh, she talks about how painful it was to really be with that. Yeah, and it can shift. Yeah, our relationship changes. All right, and quickly we'll just go over the 6th awareness, which is the practice of samadhi. This is to say, close adherence to the Dharma. So again, these all kind of blend into each other. The last one was preserved awareness of the Dharma. Now he's saying practice of samadhi is close adherence to the Dharma. It's interesting. Samadhi is typically used as a word to talk about stillness, deep concentrated zazen, being totally present in the moment, not distracted, just completely still in this moment. And of course, that is a close adherence to the Dharma, because the Dharma is this, just this moment, all the time. The Buddha said, monks, learn to control your mind, for this will enable you to practice samadhi and thereby realize the true state of life and death. The true state of life and death. Yeah, so control your mind. I think this is dangerous language. But that's kind of what we're doing in a way, using breath counting, using shikantaza, using koans to bring ourselves back here in a way that is controlling the mind, but it's also really just allowing the mind. That's kind of what it feels more like to me. Using those tools to just allow this, whether this is stillness or fantasy or busy monkey mind, just really, yeah, allowing this moment, I think, feels more like zazen than controlling my mind. That's what the Kool-Aid in the pantry is for. I hope everyone got some. Yeah, learn to control your mind. It's interesting. I would say it's more like Dogen's, to study the Buddha way is to study the self. So it's not really controlling the mind, it's more studying the mind, right? We have these tools to keep our mind here so that we can study it, not control it. I've been using this metaphor a lot today. If you have a really busy, hyperactive kid and you try to control them, they're just going to go crazy. But if you give them space and you allow them, then eventually they'll just kind of tucker themselves out. And then we can watch, we can observe and study our mind. This will enable you to practice samadhi and thereby realize the true state of life and death. Yeah, so practicing this total presence, being with what is now. The bees and the wind is the Dharma. The rumbling in my belly is the Dharma. What else could possibly be the true state of life and death? Furthermore, be diligent. Be diligent in your practice of the various forms of samadhi. I don't know what he's talking about. There might be some kind of early writing about forms of samadhi. But if we look at our experience, just notice for yourself throughout today the samadhi of zazen, when you're really present with just this, and quiet, cross-legged and upright, simply upright. And then we do service. And so the samadhi of chanting and feeling like a culty weirdo and messing up bows and steps and things and feeling a little bit out of place, the samadhi of that. And then the samadhi of eating. Does anyone else notice that, like, Food feels different in your mouth during sesshin. Smells are really like pungent and like powerful during sesshin. So yeah, eating samadhi. And then we work, and there's weeding samadhi. And so yeah, various forms of samadhi. Walking in kinhin samadhi. Um, and then, I always talk about it. I don't know anyone else. I don't know if it's a thing, so don't listen to me, but even busy mind samadhi. I really think that's a thing. If you're sitting there and your mind is just like planning, 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 fantasy, 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 just be that. Give that kid its space. See it as the Dharma. And I think you can experience busy mind samadhi. And then, of course, there's still mind samadhi. Be aware of all of them. So then the Buddha finishes, a dam prevents leakage of water. Likewise, samadhi prevents leakage of wisdom. I don't know what to say about that. Wisdom is not a thing to accumulate in this case, I don't think. Wisdom is just hearing the birds. And samadhi helps us, yeah, the wisdom of seeing everything as the Dharma. It's not knowledge here, right? The wisdom he's talking about, you're not going to come away from sesshin with like we talked about yesterday, there's no power gained on the road. Don't come to sesshin looking for some insight that's going to solve your this or that, or some kind of knowledge or uh, answer or solution or change, or don't look for anything. This wisdom that the Buddha is talking about is like a very passive wisdom. It's a wisdom that just happens in our body and mind and heart. It's a wisdom that already is, right? The Buddha was very clear. Wonder of wonders, all beings are the wisdom and compassion of awakenedness. So this wisdom is just what you already are. It's just your life as it is, seeing that everything of your life, all the windows in your room and the monkey itself is wisdom, is perfectly enlightened as it is. But when that little monkey starts saying, this should be different, and I should be, and I need to have, and this should be, um, that's when, well, that's when we pay attention, I'll say. Because, of course, um, it is the little monkey that says uh, racist policies are bad. It should be different. Income inequality is bad. It should be different. Consumerism and materialism of our American culture is bad and it should be different. And I don't know, I think we should listen to that. Right? In one sense, it's true. Even if you are Job in the worst conditions possible, that is Buddha. Yes, it's true. But this monkey, um, we like to let it sleep, but we don't want to kill it. We don't want to get rid of that monkey forever. That's the bodhisattva vow. Um, and that's wisdom. That's wisdom too. Anyway, just throwing words around now. One more day of sesshin. Thank you all so much for doing this. It's I get to talk to each one of you both verbally and quietly in Zendo, and I hope that you share my gratitude for all of you because you have, I mean, yeah, the amount of support and enlightenment and turning words and wisdom that I have gained from everyone here. Um, and I'm just the one talking, but I hope that if you guys were all talking right now, you could say the same thing. Listen to your Sangha members and be open to their wisdom because we're giving it to each other constantly. And I feel it so palpably during session. Um, digital squares and three-dimensional people. Seriously. So, one more day. Hit it hard. Hit it hard. Hit this gentle openness and awareness with all of your might because it's a really rare opportunity to do this together. So let's take advantage.